Welcome back to Derry Public Radio. Reporting from the basement of the Derry Civic Center, this is CM Alexander with the news. As the destruction of haunted locations continue to rise, another frightening statistic also grows: ghost homelessness. With no place to haunt, what becomes of these specters turned out of their dominion? You can help your local spirit shelters by adopting a ghost for your home today. Remember, ghosts are people too. Don't let them be overlooked. You're listening to Derry Public Radio. This is Derry Public Radio.
Welcome back to Derry Public Radio, a bi-weekly Stephen King book club podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Kahn, alongside CM Alexander.
Hello, everyone.
And Benjamin Graham.
Hey, constant readers. I apologize for my laryngitis voice.
Oh, poor Ben.
Yeah.
Good thing there's not a lot to talk about in this episode, because today we are covering the end of The Shining, the Patreon selection from Hayden White.
We'll see if my voice lasts for 3 hours.
And we have CM leading our discussion. CM, take it away.
This is not going to be a long episode. I'm going to run a tight ship. We're going to be an hour. And listeners, take your bets right now.
We have the over-under.
Well, I have made my promise.
They can look at the run
They already
time
know.
That's
I know.
That's an easy bet to make.
Benefit of being from the future. Okay, last episode we had a lot of action. Jack was becoming increasingly unraveled. Danny was assaulted by the woman in room 217. Wendy was thinking about a plan to get them out of there, and the Overlook is sabotaging them at every turn. We left things off with Danny shining as hard as he can for Dick, and it is 4:30 on December 1st, and we pick back up with Dick coming.
Oh,
Fantastic.
yes. CM swinging for the fences right at the top.
He is in Florida buying fruit at a market, and this is interesting. He's not thinking anything of the strong smell of oranges.
I loved it.
That is a indication that he's going to shine.
It's such a great detail that, it's now far enough removed from the last time we saw Dick Halloran that you almost forget. And when he says, it smelled like oranges, and he didn't think anything about it, you're like, oh, shit, this is going to come out of nowhere. Also, I want to say real quick, a note of how much I like Dick Halloran and how much I like just his existence down in Florida. I think if this book, if the first 10 chapters or whatever leading up to meeting Dick Halloran were exactly the same, but then when Dick leaves the hotel, the book follows Dick instead, and we just get 150 pages of Dick Halloran hanging out in Florida. And then this chapter happens, and from there to the end, it's exactly the same.
Jeez.
I think it would still be an unbelievably good book.
That's an insane book, and I would read it.
So you want Stephen King to do the thing the Twilight Lady did, where we get the story from the other perspective.
Did the Twilight Lady do that?
Yes, and the way you guys are looking at me, I suddenly hate that I know that.
No, no judgment. It's just
Well, I don't like the books. I hate the books. There we go.
Twilight Lady. Oh, sorry. This whole time I've been like, is there a book you guys are referencing that there's a Twilight Lady?
Stephanie Meyer?
Yes.
Okay, so I couldn't remember her name. Sorry.
Sure.
The author of the Twilight books.
Yeah.
So Twilight Lady, sorry.
My knowledge of the Twilight books, I didn't know there was a long section where they just leave all the main characters.
We get the exact same story, but from Edward's perspective.
Oh, that sounds less good than the book I just pitched.
That's true. Oh, okay, we got to get back on the road with Dick and... Man, I was just trying to segue back into the story because it goes from him at the supermarket buying supplies for the hotel he works at during the winter months while he's not at the Overlook. And Danny's cry for help is going to hit him at the worst moment. What did you guys think of this scene?
The being blindsided while you're driving is one of the scariest things in the world. Now imagine it's because there's a child screaming in your head. Makes it even more terrifying.
Is that how every parent feels driving?
The fact that he describes the power that this shine hits him with as equivalent to being shot in the head with a 45 really sells how fucking hard this blast hits him.
He almost hits another car, scares some racist guy to death. Big loss there.
Fucking drives me crazy.
I know.
Why does Stephen King need to take 3 lines, a paragraph, to be like, hey, here's a reminder. People are still racist.
Yeah.
In a book that does not say anything about race.
And if it seems like we're nitpicking at that, try being out in the world and listening to Audible during this or other scenes.
No.
It hit me reading this that it just comes out of nowhere. And it's like, why the fuck? Maybe if I'm in the wrong and it's not my place to complain, so be it. But like, it sucks.
This does lead Dick to realize that he needs to get to Colorado as soon as he can. So he comes up with one of those "my grandma died suddenly" stories. What did you guys think of how Dick got out of work?
He fakes a Western Union
Yes.
to say that he got a message from his ex-wife that his son is in the hospital because her trucker boyfriend shot their son and he's in critical condition.
He doesn't have any of those things.
No, he certainly does not. I just love that he faked a Western Union to be like, look, I gotta do this.
Yeah, it's blank and he just holds it up knowing that his boss isn't going to be like, well, let me read that, because who would?
Right.
That was a fun moment.
It was a great excuse to get the hell out as soon as possible, not have to answer a lot of questions, just get moving.
The only other thing I wanted to remark on is when Dick is reflecting on his life after having just coincidentally made a living will and testament recently. And he's like, oh no, I hope this isn't related to that.
When he's like rushing into his house and he's like, all he's thinking about is like, of course I'm going to Danny. Of course this kid needs my help. And then he rushes into his door and like knocks mail, like a pile of papers on the floor. And he looks down and sees will and testament written up at him. And it's like, oh, this is what this is. He pretty much immediately accepts, oh, I don't think I'm coming back from this.
CM, did you think he was coming back from this?
I wasn't sure because I know in the movie he gets, instantly.
Spoilers.
So I was hoping he would, but I was cautious.
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I do like that Dick gets a kind of a human moment. He's doing this very heroic thing, going to rescue Danny, but I do like that he adds that he knows he has to, but he does feel a twinge of resentment because this is a lot to ask.
He's reflecting on he's had a good life.
Yeah.
Like, so is he willing to give that up for these 3 strangers?
Right.
And one of the examples he gives to illustrate that he has a good life is that when he wanted fuck, he could find a friendly one. I was like, has anybody ever described it that way?
Are you kidding me? You don't want to read The Shining Dick Summer Edition? That book is going to be so good.
That book, yeah. I'm really on board with this, Ben.
The Shining Dick Summer.
Coming soon to AO3.
Not coming. Oh, I am sorry, you guys. I will stop making dick jokes.
Never.
Over under, Ben.
Anyway, he decides that yes, he's willing to risk his life specifically for Danny because sharing the shine with somebody is a very unique and intimate experience. So they know each other a way that 2 other people cannot know each other without having had that experience together. And I just want to mention that because I never thought about how that would change 2 people, like how they relate to one another. And I loved that insight. What were you going to say, Ben?
I was going to say the other thing about this that was interesting, his other, it's another motive that he has that we have read before, that he thinks that this kid Danny is in danger. And if he doesn't do anything, he's going to die inside of his head.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Such a horrible,
awful thought that if he is just scared and he's shining this hard screaming for him, you know that if something bad were to happen, it's just going to get worse. Ugh.
Yeah, that's horrifying. We saw the effect that had on Sue Snell.
Exactly.
Yeah, geez.
Someone who didn't shine.
Yes.
Assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. but still had someone die in her head.
Yes.
Yeah. If Sue shined, she'd probably not have lived through that.
Man, you guys. Sorry, I'm just thinking like it's weirdly kind of a romantic notion that someone would die inside your head.
What?
Yeah. No, I'm with you.
Okay.
Oh, I think
Ben,
that makes both of you sound insane.
It's so
you're
intimate.
not wrong.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
That is
It's super goth.
I'm,
and I'm
backing out of the room right now.
It's just sorry. It's
I did not know I was podcasting with two people that craved the feeling of death.
only in my mind.
Yeah, I'm just gonna get my keys and my
okay.
coat.
Let me renew your faith in me. Next, we're going to find out that Ullman actually had a good reason for firing that maid.
God.
What did he?
Actually, well, yeah, Dick is reflecting on what he saw in room 217. And we were kind of, Ben, I think you and I were defending Ullman a little bit. It was presented to us as this lady got scared and he fired her. But we find out she had a little bit of shine. And she did get scared, but she wasn't he didn't fire her because she acknowledged something happened.
Mm.
She was telling guests. And because she had the shine, she did the best thing to do at a job ever. I fully support her. She would like fuck off until she knew he was coming and then look like she was working. It's like, hell yeah, you do that.
Yeah,
I would
no,
absolutely do that.
That is, if I had any kind of superpower, that is the level of stuff I would do with it.
We also get another description of Mrs. Massey, the woman in room 217, from Dick, and it never gets old or less creepy each time we get a moment from this lady. Do you guys want to talk about when the detail that we get from him when he takes the pass key after the maid comes to him scared?
Yeah, the attic part was the part that got me the worst.
Yeah.
Not a huge fan of the dark. Just that feeling of being lost. Very, very fucking scary to me. Very House of Leaves.
Yeah.
Did not like.
In a place where he tells us first about seeing the woman in room 217. He talks more about the hedge animals, some other spooky things, and then talks about being in the attic in the dark, stumbling, trying to find his way out and getting lost.
I'd also completely forgotten there was an attic, and it's such a smart way to remind you as we go into this final act that there is an attic.
We also find out that sometimes guests who have stayed in the presidential suite, and even other guests, have checked out abruptly, which I just think is cool. We're going to find a lot more about the hotel, like from the town too, that just, it's not so secret what's been going on here. Mm-hmm. Dick books a last minute flight, giving himself barely half an hour to get to the airport and board, and he almost makes it in time.
9 minutes. 9 minutes. And I mean, this is back when you could just show up and get on your plane.
Right.
Now, if this happened, he would have missed it by an hour and 9 minutes.
He gets pulled over by a cop because he's speeding. And the cop he just waits on this road for people rushing to the airport. So Dick knows, like, I can't. There's no story I can give him that will get him to let me go. And he misses his first flight.
The cop, this is such a minor detail, but I just think it's funny that the cop is like written in this way that's supposed to be like, oh, he's this really clever cop because he talks. He's like, you know, your story. I never heard the story. Fuck, what does he say?
He's
like, oh yeah, that's
job.
a great story. Stops him in his tracks from telling about his son. And he's like, the thing about the story that I can never get is the driver's license. So you should give that to me. And it is so smug and shitty.
I do love just, you get the idea of this cop loving doing this every single day. And it does crack me up a little bit.
So we depart from Dick to a brooding Danny, being a very creepy kid. If I came up on this, I would be horrified by my own child.
Danny's constantly creepy when we find him.
Something about this seems worse. So do one of you want to talk about?
I agree that I've never felt that Danny is a creepy kid throughout this book.
Right.
He is a kid that creepy stuff is happening to.
Yes.
But he's finally so like haunted.
Mm-hmm.
And like they say later on when things get really bad, that he survives it because he has been terrified for 30 days.
Yeah, he's been
He has
scared
been
every
living
moment.
absolutely terrified for a month. And now it's all just become so much because he's fucking 3 or whatever.
He's 5. Doesn't it
What-
matter that he's 5, Ben?
He's 5. Okay, sure. Yeah, it's taken it out of him. And the way he answers Wendy's questions is very unnerving.
You can just tell it seems like he's given up. And Wendy is trying to figure out what's going on, if Tony has a message for them, what they need to do. And Danny tells her that the hotel is full of ghosts and he thought it was all his fault. He's the key, but it's not just him, it's Jack and Wendy too, because it wants them all. And Wendy brings up the snowmobile and she's like, hey, we have a chance to get out of here. And Danny tells her the bad news.
And it's so matter of fact. It feels like yeah, they made him throw this thing away. Also, he knows about the woman and the topiaries. He's known all of this. Daddy just never told us.
And that's enough for Wendy to get a butcher knife and wrap it in a dish towel, lock the bedroom door.
What seals the deal on that is when she's like, is he gonna hurt us? And Danny says, they'll make him try.
Oh,
Yeah, let's get some weapons.
between that and when she first walks up to him and he has a bruise because he had just passed out off of the chair.
In the ballroom,
In the
looking
ballroom.
at the sexy, sexy clock.
Exactly. So he has this bruise on his face and immediately she thinks Jack hit him.
Yeah.
And when she asks what happened, his immediate response is, I fell. Daddy didn't hit me. Not yet. Or not today.
Oh,
yeah,
God.
not today. And it's with us knowing that the clock ticked over to December 1st.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah, we know it's coming.
We're going to visit with Jack for a time. He forgets about the boiler for a little bit, despite standing pretty much right next to it. He's so absorbed in the basement files, but he does rush to dump it when he has an interesting thought. And I kept, as these things happen, I'm like, oh, is this our last Jack moment? Like Jack having any human side or ability to be rational or feel love. He thinks to himself, let it blow, get Wendy and Danny and get out. And then he remembers something from his childhood.
He remembers, we're coming back to wasps, his dad teaching him how to burn a wasp's nest. Remember earlier when we were like, he's like, well, my dad let me have one, and so you should have one. And now, like, getting to see that moment feels gross.
It's like the dad and the wasp thing is sort of, it's almost like it makes me think of Battlestar Galactica when the Cylons are activated. It's almost like a switch because it's sort of that moment thinking about his dad just brings Jack away from this moment of truth where he can take his family and he can get out. So instead of holding on to the good thought, he decides that letting the overlook burn like the wasp's nest, which, oh my God, you guys. So this is where I was like, oh, I get it. The overlook is the nest. And that's why you guys call the wasps ghosts in the first episode.
yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, he decides that would just be one more Jack failure. Can't have that. So he dumps it.
At 220, which we established that like 180 was pushing it. And he'd been standing down there for 12 hours. Like, it's madness that it got that close. And it's after he dumps it, though, that we've talked a lot about these like points of no return. And the moment he dumps the boiler and I believe the phrasing is, he's served the Overlook and now it's time for the Overlook to serve him. And you know exactly what he means.
I feel like we're all trying to look for moments in Jack. Like, is there something salvageable there? Is he really a good guy inside?
Oh no, I've given up on that halfway through the book. He is long past the point in the basement. That moment, you're right. I mean, this is the point of no return because he has this thought: I should blow this place up. This place should be destroyed. But that once he thinks the ultimate failure would be me letting my family, who I'm responsible for, because he is still thinking about his responsibilities. He's still like ranting about how he's responsible for his family, and they're fucking it up by not doing what he knows is best for him because he's the whatever. And taking that and saying, my responsibility to the hotel is greater than that, is like the ultimate, like, I don't know. Fuck Jack Torrance.
Yeah.
He's hot take, a real bastard.
So don't worry, we're going to talk a lot more about that in a little bit here. Danny wakes up from a vision/nightmare that the Overlook is on fire, and he and Wendy are out front watching it burn when Jack bursts out of the doors, also on fire. And Danny senses that this moment that he just experienced was a barely averted disaster. And so he lets his mind drift out to Jack. And guess what Jack's thinking about?
The bad stuff.
Yeah, but he's not alone in his head. Danny hears a voice, but it says not his father's, but a familiar one.
It's because it's his father's voice, but it's not his father's voice.
Danny has not figured it out yet. Like, he knows that his dad is in trouble. He knows that his dad is dangerous. But he is still either in denial or just is a little kid and has not put two and two together, even though we all know, obviously. And this is, I love that line, that this unfamiliar voice, he's heard it before. It's a really subtle way of like letting us, confirming for us. Yeah.
Yeah, like when we talked about him trying to read his dad's mind earlier and he'd catch him looking at him. Like now we see how much stronger the hotel has its grips in.
Yeah. And you know what? When things are going bad, sometimes people tend to do the same couple of things to try to make the situation better. Like for relationships falling apart, sometimes people get married or have a baby. They do something to fix it. They think this is going to really bring us back together. And the Torrances decide to get a puppy.
Oh my God. Fun fact. Anthony and Idarelli, Detective Fishboat on Twitch, who made our Twitch intro. I said, I didn't want anything from the Shining movie. In our intro, and he's like, I just want one thing, the dog sucking that guy's dick. And I was like, fine, if it's funny. And it is funny because he put a little zoom in thing on it. Because I was like, I hate it because it's not in the book. And then I sent him a message today and I said, all right, I lied to you. There is a dick-sucking dog in the book.
Yeah. We're going to find out it's Roger later, but...
It's such an iconic moment in the movie. And when we talk about the movie, it'll be addressed. But it's such... it's iconic because of the brevity and the complete unexplained what the hell-ness.
It's a commitment to... fucking crazy that King does in this scene. Do one of you just want to, in your own words, what are we looking at?
What I'm saying is it's crazy because of the library, but this character in the book, it's also pretty brief, but it is A, fascinating, B, a massive tragedy. Like, it is a huge bummer of a character. It's one of the most fascinating parts of the book. So Danny comes out of
their suites, like I think in the hallway,
and is immediately confronted by a man on all fours dressed as a dog who assaults him.
Oh, his face is covered in blood.
Yeah. And says some real unpleasant things.
Some real dark shit.
That I'm not gonna... And Danny runs away. But can we just talk about this character right now?
Go for it.
Because... we find out later that his name is
Roger.
And he is the
mistress
sex toy of the very emotionally sadistic, what's his face?
Horace Derwent.
The guy that owned or ran the hotel or whatever. Jack is later on, once the hotel is alive, is watching this guy just like torture this guy dressed as
Yeah,
a dog.
just debase himself in front of everybody.
Exactly. Humiliating this man. And a random ghost woman in the crowd says, oh, yeah, it's because Horace is AC/DC. And he doesn't really care for him. But, oh, he's so silly. He will humiliate himself. And I believe it's at some point, don't we know that Roger killed himself in the hotel?
Yes.
Am I imagining
No,
that part?
I'm
No.
pretty sure.
It's a whole story. It is not told completely, but it is told so succinctly, just in the background. And I find their whole dynamic very sad.
It's tragic.
Very, very interesting. And in this moment, extremely scary.
Very.
It also informs the Horace Derwent's character that part of that, the woman who tells him that is his date.
Yeah.
And when she tells Jack, and she basically says that Horace doesn't go back for seconds.
Yeah.
And this person is so obsessed that Horace is going to put him through this and still not give him anything he wants.
It is
like it's so much about the power and control with
the
Horace.
hotel is cruel.
Yes.
Horace
is especially cruel.
Well, this moment's important because so Danny retreats from this, obviously, and he realizes that whatever the hotel was when they got there, it's something more now, and all of the things here can actually hurt him. And they don't want him to get to Jack. That's why Roger is out there. He's blocking his path. But sooner or later, Jack is going to come to him, and Danny starts to cry when he's hit with another vision.
Is this Jack's dad?
I feel like there's a lot more of Jack's dad in this, but maybe I'm just inferring it.
No, he hears a voice that he doesn't exactly recognize that calls him a pup.
Right.
And he's dressed in all white with a prehistoric cane is how he describes him. Those are all markers of Jack Torrance's father.
Well, it says all in white with a club raised over his head,
and
screaming,
Danny
"I'm
didn't
your
know
father."
Danny didn't know that his dad was an orderly.
Right.
Or that Jack's
I guess,
dad was an
that
orderly.
makes sense. Because I just assumed it was Jack with the
hotel's
mallet.
Turning Jack into his own father, I think.
But it also shows like the hotel is so powerful now and it has such a hold on Jack that it is pulling something from it is pulling something from Jack that it can use.
Yeah.
Like that's how strong Danny's presence has made this. Now imagine it. There's so many horrible implications of what happens if the Overlook were to get Danny. And just imagine a haunted hotel that could pull anything out of any of its guests to horrify them. And just use it on anybody.
We are going to check back in with Dick, who managed to get a flight after haunting the airport staff all night before realizing, hey, maybe there's something else I can do in the meantime that would be useful. So he calls the National Park Authority to get some help out to the Overlook. Great idea.
Such a good try. But the problem is he can't prove it. He can't say how he in Florida knows this information because an operator, like that's the other thing about the period of time. He has to have operators connect them so they know the call's coming from Florida. I'm sure they've gotten prank calls and crazy people before, but I do like that this book took the extra step and he's like, yeah, I'm sorry that you think this is what's happening, but I don't have, even if I could, I don't have anybody to spare. These idiots decided to go climbing on this super dangerous mountain despite the time of year, and everybody's out looking for them.
I like that too, because it wasn't cheap. It wasn't just like, oh, this guy's being a dick. He can't just go check it out. They are dealing with real emergencies.
Also, I want that short story, The Survivors on That Mountain.
Yeah. So Jack can feel the Overlook coming to life. And what is a very cool description. He's like all times are happening all at once. He's seeing the nuns that they saw when they checked in a few months ago. He's seeing people in different eras of clothing, all like moving about the hotel at the same time.
My favorite description is he says it's like a 3D movie. When you watch it without the glasses, it's images layered on top of each other.
Yeah.
But when you put on the glasses, it all makes sense. And that is so cool that his madness is the 3D glasses that is allowing him to see all of these different eras.
he makes his way to the ballroom to get some drinks from Lloyd.
Oh my God. So
This
happy
scene,
about this.
Yes, it's not just Lloyd waiting for him. Lloyd is such a fun bartender too. I'm sorry. I
He's the
love
best.
reading their interactions.
It's so perfect. This book is amazing because of that first scene with Lloyd where we were crystal clear there was no other person in this conversation. And then now to get that same interaction in this written style that is a back and forth conversation. So awesome.
One of the coolest uses of quotation marks in fucking literature. It's amazing.
So Lloyd is looking a little bit corpsey, and he's telling Jack that the manager is very interested in Danny, and Jack gets all Wendy's mom about it.
That is weirdly sounds like you're siding with the Shine with the hotel on this. The corpsey look doesn't happen until after Jack says something about like what does Danny have to do with any of this?
It's all about me, right?
It's all about me. And then that's when he starts to corpseify and like it scares him back into falling back in line.
It also scares him into taking his first drink. Because that is the moment he takes his first drink. And when he looks back up, Lloyd is fine.
When Jack pushes back against Lloyd about the hotel wanting Danny, he gets like gushier. He starts to decompose even more right in front of him.
He like sweats blood.
Yeah, because he just looked kind of pale and corpse, and then he becomes a disgusting monster. So, yep, like you said, Ben, Jack puts a drink up to his mouth and he hesitates, and everybody, the whole party comes to a complete stop.
That shit's so amazing. The idea of holding this glass to his lips, and he reflects on the hitting Danny. He reflects on the bike in the middle of the road. He reflects on just all of these details that have brought him to where he is, and he just can't fight it back.
Well, but all those things happened before Jack could handle his liquor. What he tells me.
I completely forgot. That makes perfect sense. You're absolutely right.
Me.
Because it's such a real like addict brain moment. Like that's what gets people. They think, oh, I was out of control then. Now I can handle my liquor.
Now
I can drink again, or I can just drink socially. It'll be okay. No, if you're an alcoholic, you can't drink. So he thinks, though, that he'd never hurt Danny again, not for the world, which we know how that's going to go. So all the foreshadowing in this book pays off horribly. And this next part, this is why I don't dance, you guys. It's just all boners.
Oh, before we get to boner dress, which is how she's described in my notes. As he starts this party, the book mentions it is 6 a.m., but time has been canceled. And I fucking love that so much.
Also, the level of drunk writing. Jack's just drunken jackassery is so real. The whole Martians thing drives me crazy. But that is absolutely something a just fucking drunk old dude at the bar would say.
Yeah, he is in it. And this is a scene that we were talking about earlier with Roger, and Jack's dancing with this woman only wearing a dress, and she's pressing herself against him, so he has a boner. It's very important to mention that. It's
also important that she doesn't mind. He expressly is like, she knows it's there. and that's Horace Derwin's girlfriend, so you also got to be very careful.
Why isn't he talking to this guy? He's been obsessed with him.
Seriously.
It's a class thing. So much of this scene at this party is about class because Jack is never addressed by any of the rich party folk. He talks to this random woman and Grady and Lloyd, the bartender, the servants,
well, because
collar people.
He's a member. He's a staff member.
Exactly, because he is staff. And he is told by Grady that maybe one day, once you join us, once you do what we want, maybe one day you'll move up the ranks.
That's crazy.
Yeah. This whole part with Grady is fascinating when Jack runs into him because he's commenting like, "Oh, you're the caretaker, the previous caretaker." He's like, "No, I'm not. He's like, well, you're the one who killed your family. He's like, no, man, my wife's in the kitchen. My 2 little girls are upstairs sleeping because it's late and they should be asleep. I don't have any recollection of killing them at all, actually.
I've been here forever.
Yeah. And
You've always been the
you should
caretaker.
know we got hired at the same time, after all. You know, the manager hired us. He's not talking about Ullman. Of course. And Grady goes on to tell him that Danny understands. He knows what I'm talking about, but he hasn't really enlightened you. And what a naughty thing to do. Seems like you're going to have to correct that behavior. We get a lot of, let's talk about it, a lot of correcting.
The line of the manager knows that anybody who can't keep their own family in line just isn't management material. And like that's Jack just wants to be important to this place.
Yeah.
Like Jack's life is failure after failure, even more so from his own perspective, except for who caused it and his perspective is different. This is Jack's last chance to win. And I think that's why he clings it. I think that's why the
hotel
Overlook
got
its hooks into him so hard. Like this life of luxury, this status, all of this is right here.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's always been about Jack's ego,
Yeah.
his
Pride.
pride. Yeah.
I just love Grady's explaining to him, like, you can go far here if you do what's right, if you correct your family. I had to correct my wife. I had to correct my daughters quite severely. They all wanted to leave, and I took care of that problem.
More than that, his daughters tried to burn the
set it on
place
fire.
down.
Good for them. Oh, those
Right?
now I want to meet those poor little girls. They tried. Well, the version I am familiar with them, I have no sympathy at all because they're terrifying. But this made me like, oh, they were just kids. So Jack, once again, he kind of pushes back and he's like, well, maybe Wendy and Danny don't need to be here. I'm the one you guys want after all. I'm the one the manager wants. Can't they be allowed to leave? And Grady tells him, Danny can really enrich the hotel. And he then warns Jack that Danny is trying to bring in an outside party.
Can't allow that.
Nope. So Jack's all bummed that the hotel isn't all about him, and Grady tempts him with a reward. So we learn here that the manager left the scrapbook for Jack, and there's more, and he can have all of it. And who knows, maybe someday he can be the manager. That's when he dangles that in front of him.
It's everything Jack wants. We talked about this before. There's no telling what the mystery he's trying to solve is, that he's been digging through all this paperwork, and now the idea that I could have access to all the information, it's too much.
Grady has one last message for Jack. He takes him to the clock that we saw with Danny in our last episode. And it's not what Danny saw. It's not a sexy clock, so that question is answered. Yeah, let's talk about what Jack sees, because it's not kissing peepees.
It's God, if only it were. What he sees is 2 figures, a man and a boy. And the man is wielding a mallet. And he picks it up over his head and strikes the little clockwork boy. And at first it tings like a clockwork would. But as it begins to bleed and collapse, the sound becomes wet.
Ugh.
It's horrifying.
And he keeps thinking, like, clockwork doesn't bleed. But then he watches the blood splattering the inside of the dome of this thing. It's brutal. And when he is finished watching, he turns to go and sees.
He turns back and the ballroom's empty.
Oh, okay. I'm conflating 2 different scenes.
And then he makes his way back to the bar, which still has alcohol there, which is great. And he climbs over the bar, falls asleep, just passed out drunk after 2.5 hours of drinking and partying. Lightweight.
Well, when you party with ghosts, maybe
true.
it's different.
Ghosts rage.
We're back with Dick, who is on a terrifying plane ride. We don't have to talk about this a lot because we're going to get more and more of Dick, but
I would.
that was an accident.
I just wanted to.
She got a dick slip. You slipped your dick. I'm sorry.
The slip of the dick.
Yeah.
Okay. Now you're just trying to come up with episode titles. It's not gonna work.
This would be a dickless title.
I just wanted to briefly mention my favorite side character.
The angry lady?
Yeah, the angry lady on the plane who he
This
keeps
is a meet cute.
looking. She's a major character in
In the summer of Dick.
Yeah, Dick Summer too.
The Dick Shining Summer. I don't know what it was.
But she's just a lady sitting and reading
She
a book.
shines for Dick too.
She does shine for Dick because she's just sitting there like tersely reading a book.
I love that.
And she at one point like makes a very he says something about a plate in his head, and she makes a very stern but also very reasonable argument against the CIA and war in general, and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I love this lady."
Like, your
Are you
tone
kidding
is
me?
so angry, but your words are good.
Yeah, I was instantly like, "Who is this? Bring her along. This lady rules."
And in another time,
Yeah, because as
Dick would have shined for her because
because when he needs fuck, what was it?
when he wants
fuck,
he
finds an amiable partner.
Sure. Anyway, as they
join the Mile High Club.
Jesus Christ! I said I want to briefly discuss this character.
I'm so sorry.
She shines. They thank each other.
She asks him
cool.
to get a drink, and he's like, "Sorry, my business is urgent." But yeah, he can feel her wishing him well, and he wishes her well. He rents a car. He gets chains put on the tires, and he is making his way to Sidewinder. Dick's journey just to get to Sidewinder is extremely terrifying.
Yep.
If any listeners live in areas where the winters don't turn into frozen hellscapes, it's really hard to imagine the anxiety, constant anxiety and exhaustion. I've never been in a situation like this, but I've been in bad enough snowstorm driving moments that
it is scary.
I don't know how he does this. Yeah. It is insane. But unfortunately for him and the Torrances, the most direct route to Sidewinder is blocked off, and he has to go an additional 20 miles out of his way.
Fucking bad luck.
It's still wild how fast he gets here,
yeah.
right?
Yes, he's not driving safely. He's kind of, right on that edge. We're back with Wendy and Danny, and she's going to go down to the kitchen to make some food, and smartly asks Danny if it's safe, and he's like, yeah, it's okay, just be careful. They had spent all morning listening to Jack party with ghosts.
That's gotta be fucking scary.
Especially because, Wendy is fully aware, can hear the other voices
and music. And so she makes her way downstairs holding the knife. It's a very tense journey downstairs. And she reflects on something that made me infinitely sad for her. She thinks about how she's imagined the end of her marriage several times. Sometimes as divorce, Jack dying in a drunken accident, sometimes a dashing stranger rescuing her and Danny, sweeping them off to a better life. But she's never imagined that she might be the end out of necessity.
It's a hard bridge to cross.
Wendy is... I cannot imagine.
Yeah.
I can't imagine how fucking strong she is in this moment over the course of this 24 hours.
Yeah.
She does and goes through the most horrific shit and gets through it. It's so the pragmatic way she thinks in these moments is so fucking scary because it makes you think, okay, if I was in this situation, could I think in the same way?
Well, and I love that you said that because it's not just Jack. It's not just what he is doing and what she's experiencing with him that is causing her to basically be ready to kill him if it comes to that. It's all of the things she witnessed and has heard in the hotel. So I think that gives her a more definitive sense of, I don't really have a choice. We have to survive and I have to protect Danny no matter what. If it was just Jack, that would be one thing, but that's not all that we're up against. And I love that moment for her, although it's super sad. Oh, here, I just want to mention briefly, when she heard Jack partying in the ballroom, she recognized his drunk talk, but she keeps thinking there's no alcohol here except the cooking sherry. She thinks about what she'd do if Jack suddenly attacked her. And she's like, I don't know. I'm soft. I've never been tried, which is bullshit. She's been through a lot with her parents. And then with Jack for all of their marriage, she is not soft at all. And I just hated that she's like, oh, I've
so
never
hard on
been
herself.
tried. Like
that's her baggage. Like Jack's
Yeah.
baggage is this violence that infected him, and her is that her mother tore her down, tore her self-esteem to the point where she got in this situation, didn't believe in her strength enough to leave when she had the opportunity to,
Yeah.
It's really fucking hard. Check that timestamp, y'all.
Hey, off. No. Okay. Very quickly, Wendy's making breakfast. Very tense scene. Thinking Jack or something else is going to creep up behind her this whole time. She's thinking about her responsibilities. What do you guys think about this part? Because she's obviously her first thought about her responsibilities is to Danny, but then she's like, well, maybe I have a responsibility to Jack too. And like, what am I going to do? We have to live here with him possibly for months without anybody coming up to rescue us. Can I avoid him that whole time? Like, again, she's telling herself, like she did earlier, I might need him. I might have to be around him and interact with him. Can't lock us up in the bedroom for months. She finds him passed out, doesn't feel anger. In fact, she thinks he stopped drinking and it's not him who decided to start again. There wasn't even any liquor available for him to drink. She offers to help him to bed. She's being very kind, reaches down to try to lift him. And what happens?
And he goes, gotcha, and grabs her by the ankle. And he was just playing possum.
And he has so many hateful, horrible words for her before he starts to choke
From
her.
this point to the end.
Oh, yeah. Completely psychotic.
Everything happens so goddamn fast and so brutally. It's from this point to the end. Try putting the book down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For real.
Yes.
For real.
So he's choking her. She loses the knife. She's trying to stay conscious. And that's when Danny,
Oh,
5-year-old Danny, has
That-
to try to save his mom's life.
It's so much responsibility for this kid. He does a very kid thing to do. He jumps on Jack's back to try to fight him off, but he's this tiny kid, and Jack basically just grabs him and throws him. And luckily, Wendy didn't freeze like she was afraid she might. She grabs a wine bottle and just cracks him upside the back of the head and takes him down, knocks him clean out.
She realized during his nasty speech that he was going to kill them. And so she tells Danny that they have to deal with this. He is extremely upset and just wants to go to sleep.
It's heartbreaking hearing him
So
beg to go
heartbreaking.
to sleep.
The worst part is once they have him, well, we should say they take him and they lock him in
They drag him to the pantry
the
and lock him
pantry,
in. Yeah.
which has a huge steel bolt that once he wakes up and is bashing against the door, doesn't even budge. But later on, the saddest part is Danny listening to his dad for hours. And the thing that breaks Danny and makes him cry is thinking, how will he go to the bathroom? Which is such a child, like the way King writes Danny, I can't
It's
say
great.
enough, is
Yeah.
unreal because he feels so much like a real child. He thinks the way a child would think. It's really, really sad
Yes.
in these circumstances.
We got to talk about this thing that happens next because I want to dive into this, and we only have 5 minutes. The episode's over. It's a conversation that we've primarily, Josh and Ben, you two have had several times throughout our 2 episodes so far. Wendy is telling Danny after they lock him up, it's not Jack trying to hurt her. It's the hotel. It's gotten into him. The hotel gave him alcohol and made him drink it. The hotel is trying to hurt Jack as much as it's trying to hurt Wendy and Danny.
That last sentence, yes, I agree with. The hotel is trying to hurt Jack.
It's like, okay, so from my perspective here, Wendy is basically, maybe being extreme, just based on the conversations we've had about it, absolving Jack of his role in this because she's really reassuring Danny, this is not your dad. So from Wendy's perspective, this isn't Jack.
Mm.
Did that like make you guys feel any different, or what did you think of that?
I do like the idea that it is more a protective. It's not necessarily what they actually might think or believe. It's what they need to believe in this moment.
That's how you took it.
Yeah, it makes sense that Wendy and Danny, it would be easier in these circumstances to remove the person you know and love from the situation. It would be much easier on you, just your mental strain, I think, to think, this is not my dad, this is not my husband, this is a monster, you know. But us as readers, I personally, me as a reader, I think that we are not supposed to absolve Jack of these crimes. Like, because it is, sure, it's the same argument as saying, well, is it really Jack doing this or is it his dad?
Well,
You know?
okay. My question for you guys would be, if Jack was the caretaker in a different hotel, like obviously he wouldn't get possessed, we wouldn't be having this stuff. What would their future be? Just knowing who Jack is and what he was already struggling with and dealing with, and kind of having that insight to him, do you think that this family stays together and has a happy ending? Like, if he's still isolated, but there's no ghosts.
That's a really good question.
I think, I mean, who could tell?
No, I know. It's just.
It's an interesting question because
I have a theory.
Yeah.
I think that I'm going to say right off the bat, I don't think they'd be magically fixed by the end of this. By any stretch of the imagination.
Sure.
But there are a few small examples that I could go back to and think, if this time alone in a not haunted place could still give Jack enough time to reflect that he could still get to some of these thoughts, I think things would be better. The main thought was, I believe it was in the last section, when he thinks, maybe Stovington wasn't smothering me to death. How could anybody enjoy teaching if they were hungover for half their day? That's that thought.
He was looking to the future with that thought.
That thought is the start of coming out of this situation with maybe the completed play. I believe he would have completed the play by the course of this time taking care of the hotel. I think he would have talked to Al Shockley, gotten his job back, and would have put on his play. From how the family healed and moved on from there is anyone's guess. But I think there would be a short-term, solid happy ending.
Yeah.
But I think they still definitely would have had their struggles with all of Jack's other issues.
No, I definitely don't want to say that the hotel played no part in it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'm just big on like, I'm sorry, ghosts aren't a good enough reason to be mean to your family.
Right.
Let alone murder them with a mallet.
Jack couldn't. It's circling back to an argument we had. Can't believe I'm going to bring this book in the same conversation with Dreamcatcher, but I am. When we discussed at the end, Jonesy's a fucking psychopath, because we find out that all that was in his head to do. It's the same thing with Jack. The hotel couldn't. I don't think the hotel could make him do anything he wasn't capable of.
Yeah.
For sure.
And yes, he was clearly is capable of this, but without the situation, I don't think he ever would have done it.
I think that's fair. Okay, well, thanks, guys.
Fucking love this book, man. This is so fun to talk about.
So Wendy also understands that it's Danny's shine that's fueling the hotel, similar to what I think it was Danny who had that thought earlier, that without his power, the hotel ghosts really are probably just scary pictures, like Dick said. But he brings them to life, not intentionally. And if it absorbed Danny, then those things are reality, not just scary pictures.
Earlier, when we were talking about Josh, you were talking about, what would happen if Danny's powers got in the wrong hands? And I don't know what Dr. Sleep is about. Is that what it's about? Don't tell me. Anyway, but that's kind of what, in my head, I think a sequel to this would be about.
Okay.
But I don't know that it actually worked. We're not really given any definitive reason it would work that way. And also there's something at the end that makes me think the danger of the hotel is
I know what you're
only
talking about.
what Jack and the living can do. I don't know that the hotel can get his power. It wants it, but
oh shit.
anyway. We'll
that's a
talk
fucking
about-
great. Imagine how pissed off you'd be if you were a sentient hotel and you're like, I'm gonna kill this kid and get all his powers, and then you kill that kid, and then that kid is in control of everything.
Oh, I didn't even think of that. That's fun.
Okay, so Wendy's plan is good, locking Jack in the pantry. He'll be safe in there. They'll be safe. Someone will come eventually. But the hotel is stronger than she realizes. And I don't know if this is a thing or if I was just trying to make it as a thing, is when they were dragging him to the pantry, he drunkenly mumbles to them like basically how to defeat the hotel. Because he says, you have to use smoke, now run and get me that gas can. He's, caught up in the memory of the wasp's nest.
Because the gas makes the wasps drunk.
Yep.
And the hotel's a wasp nest.
All wasps. So we were back with Danny.
Wasps all the way down.
It's 3 in the afternoon, and they have been able to hear Jack ranting and raving in the pantry. And Danny's thinking about earlier when Daddy tried to hug Mommy too tight. I hate it.
Hate it.
It's fucked up.
About an hour later, they both fall asleep, and Danny wakes up when the screaming stops. And what he wakes up to is the fucking elevator running. This is the worst thing in the world.
I love it. I really do.
So we find out why Jack stopped screaming because we are with him in the pantry. Would one of you like to talk about what happens here?
This scene starts off.
So promising.
It's as he's thinking to himself about how hard he really tried to reason with Wendy before she overreacted and led them to this situation.
Well, and he has a moment where he's like, isn't the more important question, how did I get drunk? Shouldn't I focus on that? Because that's fucked up. But then
he hears the party going on without him. And that's unforgivable.
It kills me when he starts to sympathize with his dad and we get the same flashback.
Oh no.
From his completely skewed perspective.
It sucks. I don't have better words for it.
Yeah.
It sucks.
It's hard to read.
Yeah. It expresses the thought, well,
my dad
what if
had
it's our fault?
to correct my mother.
She must have been making sly faces behind his back.
Yeah, she must have
been doing
looked
something.
at him wrong and deserved it. So Grady shows up. He's like, damn, dude, you let your wife and your 5-year-old kid lock you in here. Maybe we should be dealing with Wendy and not you. And Jack is just doubling down. He recommits as hard as he can to the hotel. He's like, if I have to kill her, I have to kill her. Like that, I'm fine with that. And Grady lets him out.
What I have two questions about Grady. First, what is your take on, we established very beginning Grady didn't graduate high school, but he talks about him as his voice as well-bred.
Yeah, he's like, for an uneducated man, you sure talk good. I didn't know if that was just if these ghosts have their own personalities or if it's the hotel
if it's assigned to him.
That's the thing. My take is that
because it didn't send him to night school.
The ghosts. yeah.
I mean, that's what he implies.
He does imply
yeah, he implies that that's a possibility.
Yeah, he's like the management values education, and it's like what?
Like he's improved
you went to community
in the
college. Yeah.
Is Grady doing the rain in Spain montage?
Yeah,
what's happening?
God.
And then what did you guys think of Grady's titters?
Sorry,
Excuse me?
Titters got me. I was like,
gentlemen, don't ask those kind of questions, Josh.
That is my new word for boobs.
Oh, absolutely.
It's my favorite part of this conversation is like every time Jack responds with something like in the affirmative, I'm taking action, Grady, like he describes Grady titters on the other side. He just little Like, that's how I imagine, like, he just hears this condescending little laugh on the other side, and it made me like Grady a lot.
Well, my favorite part, I didn't notice that. What I noticed was that every time Grady, maybe this was in the last scene, last party scene, but several times, every time that he's talking to Grady, every time Grady does one of these little digs at Jack, someone at the party laughs.
Oh, yeah.
They don't mention that it's laughing at, but it's every time Jack is like just poked at. It gives the impression of all of the rich folk
It's
are
because
watching.
they're
and
all a
laughing
hive
at him.
mind.
And also, see, that
Damn
actually
it.
answers
Damn
my
it.
question. Or answers my answer to your first question, which is the reason that Grady is so well spoken is I don't think the ghosts are the actual people that died. The ghosts are all the hotel.
Damn.
No night
yep.
school.
They are just the shells that the hotel
So
takes.
it wouldn't get Danny's power.
It might not get Danny's power, but it might become stronger if it's absorbing these
that's
people,
true.
I guess.
So Jack gets out of the pantry and there's a martini waiting for him on the kitchen counter. Awesome. And while all of this is going on, Dick is still making his long, dangerous, horrific journey to the Overlook. And he nearly goes off the road. We don't have to talk about it necessarily. It was just a very well written, tense
very scary.
scene for him.
The one thing I would say about this is he meets the guy driving a plow, Howard Cottrell, who also shines.
Yep.
And he's like thinking about,
I know things sometimes. Oh, I know you do.
Yeah.
I love that.
And part of Halloran is thinking, that's kind of fortunate, but also I've never run into this many people with a shine in one day, and I don't like how that makes me feel.
Yeah, it's probably a bad sign.
Yeah, so many dark omens for Halloran's fate.
So he continues to make his way along after getting pulled back onto the road from the snowplow driver who gives him mittens.
Gives him his gloves.
Yeah,
It's so
that his
great.
wife knit. He's like, you better mail these back to me, and
My
I don't want to
address
pay
is in there.
postage. And tells him, hey, when you get to Sidewinder, go see this guy. He can give you a snowmobile. Tell him I sent you, and he'll take care of you. And on the way there, though, Dick has another intrusive moment happen. This actually makes more sense to be extremely horrible than the random dude on the road.
Agreed.
Because it's very specifically picking at Dick. And it is, sorry, that was gross.
Yeah, I don't like that.
You got to sneak in a dick pic if you're going to do this episode.
And he almost goes off the road again. But fortunately, he wasn't on a stretch at that moment where that was super easy to do. And he's like, wow, it probably was just hoping that I was. And I need to be really careful because as I get closer to it, it's going to get even more powerful. Meantime, Wendy hears Jack's promise to murder them, basically. And Danny is still asleep. And she's so freaked out that bad horror movie move. She has to go down to the pantry to make sure that Jack is still locked up tight. So, all right, guys, let's talk about this.
Oh my God. Now, of all the ways I was expecting this scene to go, and for whatever was going to kick this off, the furthest thing from my mind, because they are constantly talking about that it's, like 8 a.m., like it's very early in the day, that she's on her way and she hears the clock chime. And then it keeps going, and then it goes to 12, and we hear the unmasked shouting. And that unmasked shouting this time just it has the weight of a starting pistol, because it's fucking madness from here.
Do you just want me to read off her injuries?
Yes, please.
So Jack attacks her in the lobby with the mallet. He hits her in the stomach with it. And she finally realizes, he's going to beat me to death. He hits her again, breaking several ribs. And then he hits her leg and then almost bashes her right in the head. But she moves in time and he catches part of her ear. She manages to get back up and finally stab him in the back with the kitchen knife.
Handle deep in his back.
And when Jack screams, it sounds like the hotel is screaming.
So awesome!
And Wendy then very painfully and agonizingly makes her way upstairs when she hears Jack on the steps just below her saying, you bitch, you killed me.
Give me the bat, Marge. Give me the bat.
Question for you guys. Did she kill Jack? Is he a ghost right now? Stabbed into the hilt. I know. It was just
I actually think
had to
there's
think about it for a minute.
something there. Because, she's like running, she's thinking, how the fuck is he doing this? I've killed him. How are you not dead?
Yeah.
So I think there's a little something to it
I think later
anyway.
on it becomes clear he's still alive. But
Yeah.
in that moment, I was like, he could be literal right now. Like, maybe she did. But so much like when Danny starts to get choked by the woman in room 217, we cut away from that to Dick. He finally makes it to Larry Durkin and Sidewinder, who trades him coats very kindly and gives him a ski mask and a snowmobile. And this is where we come to understand the Overlook does definitely have a reputation in Sidewinder, because most of the staff employed there are residents of the town, and of course people talk. And Larry knows that Howard, the snowplow guy, sometimes knows things, so he buys that Dick does too. And we should mention here, just because it was so well written, and I'm kind of like plowing through it, that Dick is nearly on the edge of a mental breakdown, and he's had to explain to two people what he's doing, and they're so casual. They're like, nobody's up at the Overlook right now. Oh no, the Torrance boy, he's fine. He's like, for the love of God, I just need you to understand that this is serious. I wouldn't be here if I look at it outside. I wouldn't be doing this if I had a choice. So
I was in Florida with fucks wherever I could find them. And now I'm here.
I get it. I get how these guys are, though, because they know that by helping him, they're probably sending this guy just from the elements out to his death. So they're like, you are going to explain to me why I'm going to help sentence you to die, basically. Like, I don't want that responsibility on my shoulders. So when Dick starts off to the Overlook from Sidewinder on the snowmobile, it is 7:10, and he can only go safely, between 30, 45 miles per hour, and he wants to go faster, but he's like, I either get there not in time, possibly, or I don't get there at all, and I just have to do the best I can. And it's at this point that we're with Dick that Wendy and Danny are sleeping. So our time with Dick is sort of behind what we know is happening with Jack and Wendy. So there's still time. Do you guys have any moments from this next chapter that you particularly enjoy?
The tense nature of Dick's entire journey is insane. And when he finally, the relief that's described when he's like, I think I see it. No, I don't see it. I definitely see it. Awesome. And he's getting close. And then suddenly there's a big fucking hedge lion just in his way. And he's going towards it, and it bats him off the thing, knocking him like 10 feet through the sky. And then it proceeds to just play with him. It just knocks it. That thing could have killed him instantly. But no, it just bats him around. It's brutal.
I loved when before he meets the lion and he's still driving there and he's thinking, every mile closer I get, the hotel's effect on me gets stronger. And it's described as it's trying to get past his defenses to the, quote, soft meat inside, which is a horrible way to describe your mind. It's so unnerving. But he defeats the hedge lion by lighting that sucker on fire himself.
Yeah, and when he's like reaching for this old Zippo that he had since the army, and he's like worried that it's not gonna work, and he's like, it's really, really tense. And when he finally grabs it and he's sprayed gasoline all over this thing, and then he lights it, and the first thing it says is about his glove catching on fire. Like, fuck.
And then he punches it in the fucking heart with his fire glove.
Uppercuts it like
Ryu.
I was thinking of
Jean-Claude Van Damme.
Sagat, which he does the tiger knee.
He does.
That's not even right.
Wendy and Jack are still chasing each other through the hotel like two very old people. Both of them are in bad shape, not moving fast.
What an insane thing. This tense climb up the stairs, and then just random ghost pops a party favor in her face, and then it's gone.
I love all of this.
He screams, the party isn't over, in her face, which is a horrible thing to have happen to you.
What an insane thing amongst this insane battle for her life.
All of the stuff, just the minor ghost encounters that Wendy and also Danny have later on are all so like, oh no. If this were a haunted house, It's very haunted house,
Yes.
is what I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah.
say, I
All
guess.
right,
I
get
And
that.
I love it.
I want to go through and just list every neat description of what she's experiencing.
Be here all night.
And I already am like 20 minutes over what I promised. So basically, they have a very scary chase with her finally getting into the bathroom, which we have seen Dick have and Danny have visions of a woman bloody in the bathroom. So we don't like that she's in there. Jack is chasing after her, trying to get in, causing the scene that Tony gave Danny in the very first part of the book of the record player and everything being turned over. And
Catch that. Fuck. That's awesome.
So good.
And Danny is not in the room, and she realizes he must have heard Jack, beating her to death, and hopefully he's hiding. And Jack begins to beat on the door with the mallet. He's breaking through, and
then she's like, fuck
she's got
this
some
shit.
razors.
I'm getting
Yeah.
razors and cutting you up. Wendy's not going down without a fight.
No, she is not. Fortunately for her, though, as she's slashing at him and trying to fend him off, he hears the sound of a motor. And
Like a wasp in the distance.
And he knows that, Wendy, he can get her when he needs to, but he's probably got to take care of whatever that noise is. I loved that Dick, because there are more, the hedge animals are all guarding it, and he's like, okay, I'm just going to plow the snowmobile as far up to the front door as I possibly
I'll drive
can.
this motherfucker into the front door if I have to.
I also like how the sound of the snowmobile approaching is used to time multiple
Yes.
scenes. Because we go to Danny's perspective and it jumps back a little bit, and so when we hear the motor coming, we know where all of the other characters are.
It's very well
really
written.
good.
It adds to how tight this sequence of events happens in real time.
Even though we're jumping
But we
all
get
around.
but we get to take the luxury of having all the time inside these characters who are all
so good.
experiencing totally different levels of horrifying shit.
So he does manage to get inside safely, and he walks into a murder scene in progress, basically. And Jack is waiting for him. He was hiding in the elevator. Never hide in the elevator. Creeps up behind him and hits him on the head and again in the face, shattering his cheekbone and most of his teeth on that side of his face. Then Jack's like, okay, I'm going to go to the third floor and find Danny. So we are with Danny now, but before these last few scenes, while he's sleeping, he's dreaming, and he finally gets to talk to Tony again. What did you guys think about this?
I love it. Oh my god, it's so good. As anyone that listens to the show regularly, I fucking love dream sequences, and the way I had to go back and be like, wait, what? Because when Tony shows up, it is at the end of this long hallway that doesn't exist. Danny describes it as, why is Tony showing up in this hall that does not exist in the real world or this dream world that he I usually
It's not
encounter
familiar.
him in. And I can just visualize this is so clearly in my head, this just like enormous, like cyclopean hallway where you can't see the ceiling and it's just dark and all the doors are unmarked. And it's so like otherworldly.
What's
horrifying.
terrifying about that, though? Tony tells him that he's deep down in himself. In an overlook where no one else can ever come. No clocks work, no doors have ever been open. That he uses the overlook as an example to describe him being deep down in himself after everything we've gone through in this hotel. I mean, I get it. It's like a point of reference this little kid has now, but it made what is inside of Danny feel for the first time for me
Menacing.
dangerous.
Yeah.
I
didn't even think
Yeah,
of
that just really
Sorry.
took me a second.
because
You guys are so quiet. I thought,
no,
they just
I
didn't
was
even
just-
like that.
I was
am
just
sitting
taking
with
that
it.
in.
Very cool. Very cool.
Tony warns Danny that you have to hide and you are going to remember what your father forgot.
What did you guys think about Tony being Danny at 15? Because now this is the first time Danny is right up close to Tony, and he can like see his parents in this 15-year-old version of him and see himself in that. So what did CM, what did you think about that reveal since this was your first time reading it?
Not really anything.
No?
No. Is this a Dr. Sleep thing?
No, it's
Okay.
finding out that this spirit is
I guess-
15-year-old, the 15-year-old version
I
of
guess
him
I would have assumed
he can't know how he'll be at 15.
I guess I would have assumed he'd see like an adult version, but I feel like to a 5-year-old, 15 is an
It's
adult.
an adult, absolutely.
Yeah, and also it works because King has such a way of writing a teenager and tying you to the nostalgia of that. So for him to see himself and to be a teenager is just very King, I guess.
Yeah, I didn't really take it as this is literally him seeing himself at 15. It's just, I mean, maybe it is, whatever, but it's just the reveal that, like, Tony isn't a supernatural being.
Mm-hmm.
It is Danny. It's Danny. It's Danny's power, essentially, you know? So I don't know. I also didn't really think of it as much of a real reveal because of what the doctor in Sidewinder said. Because the doctor in Sidewinder told us at the very beginning of the book, well, Tony isn't real. Tony is Danny. You get why his name is Tony, right? And I didn't, but now we do. So yeah, it's a cool moment. But
Stephen King
wasn't like,
didn't
whoa.
think that we'd go back and find where they say his full name and Anthony is his middle name.
Yeah, he didn't expect that we'd have basic ability to remember things,
Well,
which I
don't.
clearly don't.
Danny comes to Jack going from like, hey, Danny, man, I just have to give you a bit of a spanking. No big deal. To screaming, come here, you little shit.
CM, how'd that hit you in the audiobook? Do you listen to that?
I did.
Because it is the only moment in the book where they put a digital effect on the voice when he goes from Danny just come here, take your medicine like a big kid, and it'll be over. And then it's, and then his voice change, and they put this like demonic reverb of come here, you little shit. And it made me jump.
It's fucking scary. I love it.
The audiobook is so good.
It's really good. On Audible, a bunch of the reviews of the audiobook are really bad. And people saying that they didn't like this narration.
Campbell Scott?
Yeah.
He's my favorite
I could not disagree.
Person to read a book ever.
I think it's excellent. I don't know what those people were talking about personally.
This next moment, though, is my favorite thing because it's another one of those kind of impossible to imagine scenarios because he hears all this and then Jack turns the corner and Danny is relieved because he sees that's not my dad. That's something wearing my dad. And that's where I think based on how the moment that slips back makes me firmly in when Wendy has that conversation with him about that's not your dad. It really isn't. At this point, he's wearing a jacksuit.
Ugh, the Overlook in a Jack mask. He is screaming some crazy shit at Danny, including that he cheated on his final exam. And he's going to find proof in the basement. So is that what he's been after this whole time? Or
well, it's from his play. It's the
I know, but is that like what has been drawing him to the basement, or is that just in his crazy mind right now?
It's
that's
all
what he's
all of his
bleeding
excuses,
together.
Anything. The hotel is, in my opinion, at this moment, it is feeding him nonstop things that make you angry to keep him over the edge. And that's just another one of those pieces of madness in him that is driving his anger.
This comment, though, triggers something in Danny. So he's telling this thing, you're not my daddy. He knows there's a little bit of Jack left inside this thing. And that part, he's like, that part of my dad knows that you're lying to him too. And then Danny says the most badass, what could be like the best last words ever. Go on and hit me, but you'll never get what you want from me. And something happens to Jack when he says those words.
Yeah, that is the thing I've been alluding to, that Danny stops dodging. He stops running. And Jack is just like pounding the ground between his feet. And Danny says, like, you're the hotel, you're a liar, and you will never have what I have.
Mm-hmm.
And that made me go, yeah, probably. I don't know. It just doesn't make sense to me that it's a superpower that can be
Transferred to a hotel upon death.
I don't know. I'm making up rules at this point.
I think we all are.
But it just, I like that idea of like Danny is powerful enough that I don't think he would be overtaken so easily.
Mm-hmm.
I think going back into, the hotel's been feeding off of Danny getting stronger this whole time. The biggest piece of evidence for how powerful it could grow is when it nearly drives Dick off the road when he's still miles and miles away. I think that's just a small example of how amplified. So even if it wouldn't get Danny, it might still get all that strength. So it's not, it wouldn't get exactly what it wanted,
It's
but it'd get
renovating.
something.
It's remodeling. With
Yes.
Danny. So Josh, since you've been a little more compassionate towards Jack, do you want to describe what Jack does when Danny says these words to him?
Oh, God. This moment is so great because Danny puts all this out and it specifically says, although no physical change took place, suddenly his dad was back.
Mm-hmm.
It's such an amazing moment that he can see. And it said, I'm going to read this because I wrote it down because it just fucked me up. His daddy was there looking at him in mortal agony and sorrow so great that Danny's heart flamed within his chest. Jack says, Doc, run away quick and remember how much I love you. And Danny doesn't run. He takes his father's bloody hand, kisses it, and says, no, it's almost over. And then it cuts away!
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that moment is rough.
What a fucking beautiful moment. Just this 5-year-old kid with all of this weight finally, I don't know, the idea
It'll be
that
his only closure.
Yeah, instead of getting away, he's gonna, instead of running away from his dad, he's gonna hold his dad's hand one last time while it's still his dad.
It is very sweet. It shows Danny's unbelievable amount of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
It is completely undeserved of Jack. I'm sorry. I agree that the point of the hotel taking over him at this point, yes, that switch is there. But remember how much I love you. Coming from a man who has hurt his child and who, I believe if the hotel truly did take him over, it has been in the last literal 30 minutes of real time in the story.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And everything he did prior to that was all him. And him saying, oh, I'm suddenly aware of what I'm doing in this moment is not adequate. I am sure the type of person that does this. And I mean, when it's the same thing, when he broke his arm, he also immediately said the same thing. I love you. I would.
You're seeing it as a manipulation of someone who's abusive.
Absolutely, it is.
Being remorseful after. And
absolutely,
it'll never happen again. But
and the trust and the love that Danny has is, you want it to be heartwarming, but he's a 5-year-old, and of course he is going to forgive his father, who is actively trying to murder him.
Yeah,
Jack Torrance does not deserve, in his actions in this book, if things had gone differently, of course, if the hypothetical that we discussed earlier, that he went to a non-haunted hotel, I wish that version of Jack the best.
yeah.
But the version of Jack that we get in this book is a bad man. And this small moment, I found more heartbreaking than anything. That he made his child have to hold his bloody hand. Fuck that.
For you, it was a manipulation.
Yes.
Oh man,
Gotcha.
I disagree so hard. But that's that's the great thing about this book, though, is all of these interpretations are fully valid. I firmly believe that last moment where he says this is the fog clearing away in a way we've seen so many times. Jack is on death's door, if not a little too far dead. I believe that this is a final moment of clarity where he has.
Okay, here's I understand what you're saying, but here's another aspect because of what happens next.
It's my favorite version of Jack. Sam Raimi Jack.
Because
that's the last scene with Jack.
Yes, it is. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But Jack's last action is to kill himself in front of his son.
I don't think that's Jack's choice. I think the hotel bashed Jack's face in.
Okay, Jack starts dancing in the hallway. So I said Sam Raimi. Bashing his own face in with the mallet. And it kind of describes that it's about this Jack Overlook thing. And from this point on, it is described in the book as the Jack Overlook thing. Yeah. There's no separation.
It's his unmasking.
Yeah, jeez, yeah. Of course. It's about to turn the mallet on Danny. And that's when Danny figures out what Tony was warning him about.
Yeah, he's been partying all day, been beating the shit out of everybody, but he forgot to dump the boiler.
The suddenness that it clicks to Danny, I love. Because it doesn't feel like the forced thing of the book being like, Danny suddenly heard like, it is just, he's sitting there and he goes, oh.
Yeah. Well, and it had occurred to him moments before the vision with Tony, when he was running through this part of the hotel, he felt heat from the registers, and he's like, oh, this must be the side of the hotel Dad is heating today. Just a small detail in his running away, and then it all comes together.
Also, while all this was happening, we kind of stuck with Jack and Danny for a while. Wendy left the bathroom, found Dick, and has pulled him into consciousness, and they are hearing Jack chasing Danny on the 3rd floor. So we are now at the explosion. Danny, Wendy, and Dick are all together because Jack has taken off down the elevator. And there's a moment where Dick sees the elevator going. He's like, man, I don't want to see what's in that elevator.
Because it sounds inhuman.
Yes. It's human monsters, man.
So cool.
Seeing human place creates human monsters. Whatever. I got it. Nailed it. And Danny's like, we gotta go. And Dick's like, we gotta go. And Wendy's like, what's happening? And Dick can feel that it's already kind of too late. Like the explosion, they don't hear it yet or anything. It is happening. Like dumping the boiler is not going to work. And they're going to do their best to run out of there, even though Wendy is broken. Danny runs and grabs some of their winter stuff because they were like in their pajamas. And they make their way downstairs and out of the hotel. Meanwhile, the Overlook is trying to dump the boiler, makes it to the basement and screams, no, it won't be allowed. And these lines are written as delivered by the manager/caretaker. So that is not Jack at all anymore. He made it up through the ranks. He's now the manager. It dumps the boiler, screaming in triumph. But
it's yelling, we did it. And then it turns into a scream of triumph. And as the boiler explodes.
Yep.
Fucking amazing.
Danny, Wendy, and Dick are thrown from the front porch in this explosion. Luckily, there's 20 miles of snow to break their fall. And they're watching the hotel die. They're watching the hedge animals kind of lose their shit.
The bunny beating its own face against the fence was like fucking madness.
We get a very just awesome blow by blow of each horrifying inch of the hotel that has tormented us and this family getting destroyed, which was such a cool moment.
And the thing that has stuck in my mind since sophomore year of high school when I first read this, the thing
in the window
that flies away.
Yeah.
That Dick is thrown across the yard, lands in the snow, and before even checking on Wendy and Danny, he flips over onto his back just to watch the place burn, which is so badass. But also, as he's watching and it's exploding, he sees a window break and a black mass of something that he says looks like a stingray or some kind of ray flying off into the night before dissipating.
It's just bats, guys. It's just bats. So the three of them get up, gather their belongings, and make it to the snowmobile just barely. And Dick's like, okay, we got to go to the equipment shed because there's going to be some blankets and stuff that we need because we're going to be on this thing for 40 miles. It's like 10 degrees out at most.
Wendy's in like her night clothes.
Yes,
Barefoot.
she has no
Barefoot.
shoes, yeah.
Yep. And so Dick goes in to get supplies, and I thought we were safe.
Oh,
And
that's
this
the
fucked
best
me up.
part
This fucked me
about
up,
this.
man.
One of you please take us through this moment.
Dick is going in through the equipment shed because he's getting these blankets, and he glances at the rope set, sees a mallet's missing, and is like, oh, God. And he goes over and he picks up one of the mallets, and as he's holding it, he's like, God, Wendy and Danny have been through so much. I should just bash their fucking heads in so they don't have to suffer anymore. Like, hotel, one last swing.
Is this because he remembers a moment with a wasp nest
Yes.
as a kid. Is it just like the men that can be possessed by the hotel? And do they have to have some sort of wasp trauma in their background?
We've all got a little wasp
That's
trauma.
the real key.
So nobody who has had a run-in with wasps and has a penis can go to the Overlook.
Yeah, Ullman's never been stung by a wasp.
He wouldn't. He wouldn't let himself get stung by a wasp.
That tracks.
So that Dick comes back to himself. God damn it, Ben! Don't look at me like that. Dick awakens. No, there's nothing I can do.
Dick rises forth from the ashes.
Dick pops up.
There it is. That's the one.
He pops out of the shed.
Yep.
And they get on the snowmobile, and they are about 20 miles from Sidewinder when the cavalry arrives, drawn presumably by the explosion.
That shit was great.
I was so happy they didn't have to go the
Yes.
whole way. It was, thank you, Book, for not continuing to torture me.
Yeah, thank you, Book, for not giving us the end of the stand. Another 70 pages.
Guys, like, before we get to the epilogue, I just want to say, thank God Jack is bad at everything he does. Otherwise, the hotel might have survived. Is that too harsh?
No, that's great.
No.
All right, let's talk about the epilogue.
It is wild. I don't know that if this was a later King book that we would have had so many surviving protagonists.
Yeah, I'm surprised
Because this
we get a happy ending,
this
kind
is
of.
like
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, yes, they both have unbelievable trauma.
That Wendy's back was broken.
Yeah. Wendy is like limping and still very much obviously in pain. But it is the closest thing to a happy ending that we get in a King book.
Dick has taken up residence as the cook at this resort in Maine. And when he got the job, as soon as he got it, he booked a cabin, goes down to visit them. And Danny is fishing and he's talking to Wendy, who's reading, and she's in her back brace. And we find out that the life insurance that Jack had paid out and got them taken care of and set up in a new place. Al Shockley has gotten her a few jobs and is looking out for her.
I kind of liked that Al Shockley bit because she hasn't had good feelings toward him because of what he and Jack got into together, very understandably.
Yeah.
And I just liked that she's not suffering pride like Jack was. She's like, yep, he's gonna give me a hand here and I'm gonna take it and we're gonna be fine.
Yeah. And yeah, they're moving to Maryland, but they're gonna stay in contact and still come visit Dick, which is great. And then Dick goes down to sit with Danny, who is he's missing his dad.
Yeah.
He's grieving.
I do like that he's like, oh man, Dick's pretty old. Like, you're not gonna die soon, are you, Dick? In a really sweet way, he asks.
Yeah. We end with this moment where the three of them are on the dock. And there's just a sense of peace and the healing gets to continue.
He does warn Danny, though, the world doesn't like people like us, people who can shine. And so you have to protect yourself and be careful. You guys, I'm so excited that we get to finally, I've been wanting to rate this book every episode. Who would like to go first? Why don't I? Because
You should go first.
Yeah, I feel like you guys will have a lot more awesome, eloquent, and graceful things to say. And I'm just going to say, and I think I already mentioned this somewhere on something before about this book, the first couple pages made me call into question my entire rating system. because I'm going to give this a high rating, and it's going to mean nothing. Because I give everything a high rating.
It's taking you
It's
4
finally-
years.
Yes.
It's
This-
come home to roost.
So there's no way for me to explain how this book is above and beyond in quality and storytelling and captivating my mind and my heart. It is one of my new favorite Stephen King books. I'm amazed by how much I love it, how every sentence was a joy to read. It was so beautifully constructed. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts. Not a single problem in this book.
I would agree wholeheartedly. And as CM's scale has proven, I agree with her. Shining is just as good as Cell, according to CM's ratings. I want to make sure that's on.
Very
that's
upset
been
that
recorded.
you clarified.
Yeah. It's so amazing. I can't believe when I read it, it was one of those books that I was mad at myself for not reading earlier, because it's perfect. It's wonderful. I will probably revisit this much sooner than I will a lot of the books we've covered. It's 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts.
I remember reading this in high school and liking it. I don't know what it is about being older that has so changed my view on this book.
It's okay, Ben.
It's so good. It's so good. It is unreal. I have texted both of you multiple times throughout reading this book that, so this is my favorite King book now. And it, without a doubt, I don't know that it will stay there. Everyone knows if you're a King fan, your top 5 will change, sometimes day to day. But it is definitely right now, number one. I'm going to be recommending everyone read The Shining, which is going to be annoying because it's The Shining. And of course, I'm going to be talking about you should read The Shining.
Hot take.
Yeah. 5 out of 5 blue chambray shirts with a goddamn bullet, y'all. It's so good.
That's it for this episode of Derry Public Radio. As always, thank you for listening. Join us for our next episode where we will be watching the film The Shining.
Hell yeah.
For Benjamin Graham and CM Alexander, this is Josh O'Con reminding you, living by your wits is always knowing where the wasps are.
Hey everyone, CM Alexander here. Thank you for listening to The Shining Part 3. We hope you enjoyed it. As always, please follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Derry Public Radio and Twitter at Derry Public. You can also send us an email at derrypublicradio@gmail.com. And if you are enjoying our coverage of The Shining, please take a moment, if you haven't already, to rate and review us. Helps move us up in the charts, and it's really how new people find us. Don't forget to head on over to our Patreon page for bonus episodes and our Etsy page for merchandise. That's all for now, listeners. Goodbye.